Robert here from Knight Solutions. Welcome to Partner 5 and 5, which is our show. We get to sort of highlight Procore Integration Partners. And today we've got Melanie from EstimateOne. How you doing, Melanie?
Very well, Robert. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. No, great to have you on the show. I guess I actually used to be a long-term user of EstimateOne back in the day in construction. So really excited to have you guys on board. And actually, when I worked at Procore, I was quite often badgering the partnership team to say, when is the EstimateOne integration going to be there? So really great to have you on the show today. If anyone hasn't watched, this is Partner 5 and 5. The idea is 5 questions in 5 minutes, or as best as we can keep to 5 minutes, which normally is not the case, but we'll see how we go. But more important to cover the content. So Melanie, we're going to jump straight in with the first question and just really, sort of raise some awareness of what EstimateOne is and how it works with Procore and how it might solve some problems for people. So we'll kind of jump in, which is the all-important question to kind of frame the conversation and anyone listening give them an understanding of what EstimateOne is. And we like to try and basically highlight that by saying what problems does it solve and what does it do. So where does EstimateOne sit in sort of problem solving and helping those in construction?
Yeah, great. Thanks, Robert. So look, EstimateOne's wheelhouse is the pricing phase. So across the life cycle of commercial construction procurement. So that means from the tender phase to the post-award phase. So from an industry perspective, I would say there is a huge amount of work that goes into pricing by all parties, right? So, and the failure or success of a project really hinges on the decisions that are made during this phase.
Absolutely.
Making the wrong decision on which project to price or to work on, it's inefficient and it's risky.
Yeah.
For a builder, choosing the wrong subby, it can lead to contract disputes, default, project delays.
Yeah.
So EstimateOne, we're all about reducing risk and improving project outcomes by helping builders, subbies, and suppliers make better decisions on which projects to choose, which counterparties to work with, and at what price.
Fantastic.
Do you want me to sort of tell you how we do that?
Yeah, I think a little bit about that, because one of the things that I noticed a couple of people over the years, it's not a regular thing, but sometimes people go, EstimateOne, is it an estimating software?
Exactly.
And that's maybe one point you could resolve, because it's not kind of what it is.
No. Yeah, no. It's a very common question. And now that we're in the UK, there's it's often perceived as that as well.
Yes.
So look, we're not an estimating tool in terms of takeoffs and measurements. The bill of quantities from the takeoffs is quite often issued on EstimateOne and distributed to contractors. But firstly, we're all about connecting subbies, suppliers, and builders in Australia's largest commercial construction networks. We have 40,000 subbies and suppliers on EstimateOne. All about giving teams access to the right people at the right time. Having a preferred network from the builder's perspective, having a preferred network of subbies to go out to at tender time or when you need market pricing, it's essential, right? Absolutely. But having access to that sort of broader network in a time of need is invaluable.
Yeah, that's definitely, as an ex-user, it has been obviously a few years since I used it. I know it's evolved, but the core of it, fundamentally a tendering platform in some respect, people might say, is that I think the biggest differentiator, although it is a great product on its own, I think what you point out about the database is massive. I remember using it and thinking, look, we've got a specialist trade that we haven't used before, or kind of, we've kind of been going with the same couple of people for concrete or electrical for a while. We'd like to find out some other good quality subcontractors out there and invite them through EstimateOne to the tendering process. So just being able to find that network, especially in Australia as well, and I'm sure with you guys in the UK that will grow.
Yes.
That was a huge differentiator, because, you really need, it's difficult to find quality trade sometimes, and it comes down to word of mouth or whoever sends you a letter. But EstimateOne kind of opens the door and says, look, here's the whole database. Who do you want to send it to? So yeah, I like that part of it. So let's jump on to the next question, which I think we've kind of partially answered, but we can maybe add a bit of color to it. Definitely interested, who is the kind of typical or classic or sort of ideal fit customer for you guys? And let's talk about Australia or UK. We've got a couple of UK clients, and the industry actually is very similar between the two, which is great. Who is the ideal type of client? And then inside that business, what roles or positions tend to use EstimateOne the most?
Yeah, great. Look, I think look, it persists for the UK and Australia.
Hmm.
We primarily support the commercial and civil construction market.
Okay.
We've got 3 user types. We've got the builders, the subbies, and the suppliers that work in that space.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say our best fit builder has just, or client has changed over that period of time that we've been in market. So we're, 12 to 14 years old. I always forget the exact age.
Couple of digits. It's great.
But the best fit builder, back in the day, was definitely your tier 2 multi-state builder, like sort of Kane Constructions, who our co-founder Mike Ashcroft worked for.
Yep.
Over the years, as our capability and our network has grown, so has that segment of builder.
Yep.
So I'd say any builder pricing a project, right? Whether it's pricing phase at a pre-award stage for them, so when they're tendering, or if they're tendering again in a post-award phase, they need market pricing. So they're using our what we call best-in-class pricing tool for that. It's we consider it more efficient because we really deeply understand that the problems that these sort of estimators and CAs need to solve. So when they're seeking quotes, when they need to make a decision on which party to select, they're relying on EstimateOne. So that's, we've got tier 4 to tier 1 builders that use EstimateOne these days. And then with the subcontractors and suppliers, our best fit customers would be all of those subbies and suppliers that work on the same projects as those builders.
Yeah.
Yeah. So some of our subcontractors and suppliers, they also work in the resi space, but if around 30 to 40% of their work is in the commercial or civil space, they rely on EstimateOne to find new projects.
Yep.
And, really service those opportunities.
Yeah, that's definitely is what I find interesting about EstimateOne. I know it's become even more so. It's kind of become an entrenched, and I mean that in a positive way. It's kind of the place where you go and find projects. So we used to have, I used it in a smaller residential / commercial builder, and then sort of a tier 2 as well. So I kind of had both sides of the fence. But we're also finding the business development, kind of management, almost sales side, they were looking at it as well, which is really interesting. But it has become that kind of default place where if you've got a project that you need to get pricing for, or if you want to go out and price jobs out there, EstimateOne is kind of almost that industry default now. And there are, obviously, you guys have a couple of competitors, but EstimateOne kind of, is just the kind of default that most people go to these days, which is great. And it's been that way for a while, and great to see you guys, having more success. But where I'm really interested in is the next question, which is, really how does it work with Procore? And I asked that question. We're obviously big in the Procore camp. We've sort of bet the business on Procore, and we're a big fan of the products, but no product is perfect as well. Procore has its own tendering tool, which I think is a pretty good tool. It sort of has some ongoing improvements, but one of the gaps that it always had is kind of an area where you guys shine, which is what we mentioned before, that database. In the US, they're sort of starting to build that up in the Procore side, and they sort of have a quasi kind of database that they're building up, which is kind of Procore customers kind of working with other Procore customers fundamentally, but that's strictly limited to the US. They don't have that outside the US. And one of the things that I was really excited about, why when I was at Procore was pushing for this integration, always very curious, is it kind of unlocks that database, but then brings information back to Procore. It's kind of the best of both worlds as well. So with that very long intro to the question for you, if someone's listening, they're a Procore customer and they use EstimateOne, or they're interested, or maybe it's the other way around and they're considering Procore. If you've got both together, how do they work together? What kind of information moves back and forward, and why is that? What are the benefits of doing that?
Yeah. Look, I think there were a few problems that we could have solved for our customers with this integration. And, a lot of our customers were expecting us to solve one problem, which was handing the tender over to Procore and all of the data and the insights. But due to our new sort of product in market, we prioritize solving another problem first.
Okay.
So essentially, our integration with Procore, it allows CAs in that sort of post-award phase to obtain all of the benefits from using EstimateOne without having to duplicate their efforts in documentation management.
Yeah, which is very time consuming for sure.
Very time consuming. Nobody wants to manage documentation twice.
It's
So
CA's bread and butter, but no one wants to do more than they have to do. That's for sure.
exactly. So Procore is 100% the natural place to deliver that project with that subcontractor. Once they've chosen the subcontractor, we help them choose the right subby.
Gotcha.
Makes sense? So using EstimateOne during that pricing phase, they're gaining access to the network. So all of those, the 40,000 subbies that aren't in their address books on Procore or EstimateOne, they're also gaining access to the estimator's address book on EstimateOne with all of the subbies that are regularly pricing for that business. They're also gaining access to all of the tender insights from that project to help them develop the right strategy for that post-award procurement phase. And we've got, a workflow that's designed specifically for CAs with letting schedules, scope issuing, all of our, tendering documentation management capability that's available at tender.
Yeah, that's really important because the way Procore does documentation, the way you might do tender documentation, similar, same documents, but a different approach. So that's really nice. And I did like the way EstimateOne managed. It had a really good matrix grid that it managed all the documents with, which I'm sure has only evolved since I've used it a few years ago. But that's really interesting. So essentially, if you're in the early stage where you haven't been awarded the project, you're still going to be using EstimateOne as the kind of the cornerstone. Once you've won that project, it's in, let's say, pre-construction or construction maybe as well, and you need to re-tender, or maybe there's a scope change and there's an entirely different trade that needs to come into the project. You can then connect that project to EstimateOne, get that pricing through the database, and then bring that back across to Procore.
100%. That's exactly.
Awesome. That sounds like a huge time saver. And from what I understand, the directories are connected as well, so companies and people and that type of stuff as well. So it should be pretty useful to have that information.
When you say directories, what do you mean?
So just obviously having the contact details and be able to look them up across the platforms is definitely super handy. All right, that sounds really great. And then obviously, we are chewing through a bit of time, so we'll jump into the next question. But look, it sounds like a really interesting one as well. And do you find, actually curiosity, do you find most of your customers are using both have they started with Procore and then kind of added EstimateOne, or started with EstimateOne and added Procore, or is it a bit of a mix?
I would say, is it too bold to say?
Hard one.
But the majority would have, are already using EstimateOne and Procore at the same time. So, we've got customers that have been on platform for over 10 years now. So
and from what I understand, is there any cost to setting up the integration, or is it as long as you've got both, you can connect them?
That's correct. Yeah, there's no additional cost to set up the integration.
Awesome.
You do need to have our sort of post-award product in order to connect it.
Okay. But as long as you've got them, connect them up, which is fantastic.
Yes.
All right. Well, look, if someone makes the decision to use EstimateOne, and obviously, they may or may not be connected to Procore depending on their situation, what's the process for the customer if they go with EstimateOne in terms of onboarding and setup and then ongoing support? How does that kind of work?
Yeah, great. So as I mentioned, the majority of customers that want to use the Procore integration are already using EstimateOne, which means that sort of account setup legwork, that's already been done, which means that we can just really focus on training the teams and setting them up for success. So we do that by, holding their hand, one-to-one training, webinar training, and then an extensive library of materials for them to access in their own time. So we've got, there's about a team of 15 success managers at EstimateOne.
Okay.
Success manager is dedicated to a user type or an audience, which means that they really deeply understand the problems that user, such as a builder, is trying to solve, whether it's a CA estimator. And they're really great and so dedicated to helping our customers as well as listening to their feedback, which then informs our product roadmap and development.
Always good to take that feedback on board, but by and large, it sounds like a fairly kind of plug and play situation, a very straightforward one to set up.
Yes,
Because we have a huge scale of different types of products we see out there. Some are months and months of setup, and there's ones like this which is just a bit more of a natural fit and fairly straightforward. So that sounds great, and that ongoing support and feedback, that's awesome as well.
You've used EstimateOne, right? Like it's super intuitive.
Yes, it is. I think you guys have always spent a fair bit of time and obviously resource and money in making the interface very smooth and easy to use. And I think there's a lot of alignment with Procore. They're different styles of design, but they're very user focused. It's very kind of easy and natural and intuitive to use, which is definitely great as well. But look, I know we're chewing through a bit of time. One more quick question, which I always like, which is, where's EstimateOne going over the next sort of 12 months, maybe a bit longer if you want, anything that you can talk about in terms of improvements, whether it's with the integration with Procore, additional features or kind of bells and whistles that you guys are looking at bringing on board?
Yeah, great. We're really excited about this year. We've got a very strong, focused roadmap.
Excellent.
As I mentioned, EstimateOne's all about helping builders, subbies, and suppliers make better decisions. We are supporting that already by, supporting a profile of information for each user type, allowing, subbies and suppliers to connect directly, builders to connect with subbies and suppliers. So our primary focus this year is to really deepen the profile information, providing a richer set of data, and then elevate how that information is used. I'll explain that a bit further and make it a bit tangible, I guess.
No, I get it. It's very data driven, but I think it's really important because if you're looking at working with a potential builder or working with a subcontractor, the information about them is that primary decision. Do you pick up the phone and call them and invite them or not? So look, it might not sound super sexy, but it sounds really important to me. So feel free to elaborate.
Yeah. So look, for us, what that means is supporting pre-qualification data in the profile.
Excellent.
It means supporting subbie ratings in the profile. And then by doing that, you're creating this sort of central place for the estimating teams as well as the contract administration or delivery teams to identify the right subbies and, to award and then track effectiveness. And then the second part, it's around the matching, right? So I think given all of the data that we have, and, as I said, builders have been using EstimateOne for 10, 11 years now. So there's a wealth of data on their responses and their quotes. So what we want to do is really automate that matching step for them, be suggesting what subbies.
So we're going for a bit of a dating website style where we can
swipe left, swipe right. No.
A good match. That sounds great. And look, for any Procore customers, you may or may not be aware, there is a pre-qualification product that Procore has, but unfortunately it's only available in the US. So I think there'd be a great advantage there for any Procore customers. Like, actually, we're looking for something on the pre-qualification side as well, especially for those bigger commercial or public works ones as well, where we need to ensure any compliance with certain requirements. That's fantastic to have. And people are often looking for that pre-qualification as well, but they're like, I don't want to go and buy a whole new system, just pre-qualification. So I think that's a great addition.
We don't need more, there's already so many tools now for the builders to purchase. And so I think we can really help with that by, by improving the capability and what they can support on EstimateOne.
Yeah, that sounds great. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, and anything else you want to throw in? Oh, that's a pretty big one already.
Oh, that's it.
That's all good. And I know you can't always talk about everything that's happening because that's the nature of software. I certainly learned that working at Procore. But look, I think that's fantastic. I think as a focus point, that's a real value add for people. And I think if you're looking at, if you've got both systems together, I mean, that's a huge kind of win-win. It's kind of 2 + 2 = 5, I think, in that situation. So look, I know we've definitely gone over the 5 minutes, Melanie, but I've really enjoyed having a chat. Thank you so much for your time. We'll put up some information how to reach out to EstimateOne or find out some more information about the integration with Procore. But thank you again so much for your time and look forward to catching up soon.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Melanie. Cheers.
Bye-bye.